Hey there, YouTubers. So in this video, I'm going to take a look at the relationship between motherboards and a case. Now you may have decided, hey, I want this case and I want this motherboard, but did you bother to look at what's going to make those two things work well together, right? So you may find, hey, I need a different case or I need a different motherboard. Let's start in the video. We'll talk about size, right? So there's different motherboard sizes. There's obviously different cases, so you see all the different cases. There's a lot of stuff. We're not going to talk about cooling in this video, venting and all that other crap, but we will talk about, obviously the graphics card, right? Ensuring that you pick a case big enough for your graphics card if you want one of the larger ones. Something like a CPU cooler, is that going to fit, right? So let's get into it. Let me walk around back to the front. Now, I have 4 motherboards here, and there's actually 3 sizes. We've got full ATX here. We have a B660M, so it's a 12th gen. We have another, so that's micro ATX. Then we have another micro ATX. This was from 10th gen Intel, H410M, and you can see, though they're both called micro ATX, this one is obviously bigger, right? Then at the very bottom, B460M ITX here, which is kind of goofy. This is an ITX motherboard, and why they put an M on there, go figure. But let's take a look at the cases that we have. So we'll talk about this one all the way to the right in a little bit. That's an ITX case there. And that is a mini tower there. Then we have a mid tower and a full tower. Now also, for the sake of this video, we're also going to take a look at this full tower that I have. Alright, so whatever reason, let's say you decided, hey, I want an ITX motherboard. Out of these cases, you most likely will be able to get that motherboard in all of them, right? Really, it's designed for this. You're going with that motherboard, you want to have a really compact system. Now, compact also means usually you lose a lot of features, right? You can see by looking at this, as we go from right to left, we've got more features the bigger the motherboard gets, right? What do you lose here? Well, expansion slots, and that's these big guys. Sometimes they're smaller. In this case, this guy has 4 of them, and you see a mixture of big and small on that one, as well as a damaged one. You also might find only 2 RAM slots, as you see here, and as it gets bigger, 4 RAM slots. You also might notice the VRMs in the power stages are a little weaker, but as it gets bigger, they may grow. Of course, this is kind of blocked, but this one does have, a decent setup on it. Let's talk about front panel connectors. This computer has 2 USB 3.0s and 2 USB 2.0s. We'll skip this one, but if we were looking at these other motherboards, to make that work, we'd need a USB 3.0 header, and we would need at least one USB 2.0 header. This guy here also has that. We'll talk about the benefits of a motherboard like this with all its features. And of course, your ATX over here has USB 3.0, another one there, and 2 USB 2.0. So all of these would work for that. Now our ITX motherboard, if we were going to stick that in there, assuming it's compatible, it has a USB 3.0, and somewhere in this mess is a USB 2.0 header. So we would be good with that case with any of these motherboards. The same with, well, for the ITX, only this motherboard would fit in it, and it does have what it needs. USB 3.0 and the 2.0. Alright, let's look at a different case here. This case has only one USB 2.0 and one USB 3.0. I don't believe there's one on the side of this. Sometimes cases have them on the side too, but once again, you'd be good with this. You'd be good with this guy, and you would be good with this one fitting in that case. Alright, because size-wise, in a mini tower, you can get ITX usually. You can always get micro ATX. Both these are micro ATX. Where you would not be able to go is with this full-size ATX. My Z690 would not work in there, okay? So there's an issue with size from that one. But front panel connector-wise, you're good. Looking at another case, this is a mid-tower. It also has USB 3.0 and two USB 2.0s on it. And assuming compatibility, you'd be good here. You have the USB 3.0 and a 2.0 header. These have it, this has it, and then ideally what you would probably want to stick in there is a full ATX motherboard if you're going to buy the bigger case. And this guy does have that. Alright. This one next to it, this full tower, it has two USB 3.0s on it. Alright, so we're good there. You know, if assuming all these are compatible, they would all work for connectors. Now where you might run into problems, folks, and things to worry about, if you pick a case that only has one USB 2.0 and it doesn't have Wi-Fi, what are you going to do if you decide you want a expansion card for Wi-Fi? The connector that goes with this is USB 2.0. That's something to look at. You know, if you're on the lower end of the motherboard scale, sometimes you will find some that only have one USB 2.0. And to make this guy work, you would have to give up that. Alright, let's look at one more case. Alright, so this is my full tower Rosewell, and it's this houses one of our RTX 3090s, but look at the front of this one. 4 USB 3.0s and a Type-C Charlie. Let's go see which of the motherboards this will actually be compatible with. Alright, so if you want the front panels to work, and assuming this motherboard would actually fit in there, that the holes would actually line up with something, this one has only one USB 3.0 and one USB 2.0. So the USB 2.0 does nothing for you with that case. This header would only power up 2 of the USB 3.0s. You would therefore not be able to use all 4 of them. Alright? There is no Type-C Charlie header on here, which we haven't even talked about yet, and we're going to here shortly. So this is not a good match. Obviously the size of it is, you know, ridiculously small to put in something so massive as that case is. Moving on, this one suffers from the same problem. If you were, you know, happen to be looking at an H410, H510, even the H610M, probably going to have the same problems. One USB 3.0, 2 USB 2.0s, but once again they don't do anything, so, and no Type-C Charlie. So not a good match here. Now, this motherboard, the Asus B660M AC, this one actually can get it done, right? It would look a little stupid because it's kind of a small motherboard in such a massive case, but this is honestly kind of what you're looking for to match up with that. Now this isn't the, you know, doesn't have the much bling on it or whatever, but what you do get, the 2 USB 3.0 headers, alright, which will power those USB 3.0, or excuse me, well they're actually 3.2 Gen 2 USBs on the front. So you're good there. Then you have 2 Type-C Charlie headers. You only need one to power that. And this already has Wi-Fi in it. But if it didn't have Wi-Fi, you'd obviously, of course, want to have at least one USB 2.0 if you were going to connect something like this. right? But in this case, we've already got Wi-Fi. We don't need it. Moving over to this guy, this is more of the ideal, right? Something that's a full-size ATX, whether it's Z690, B660M, or excuse me, B660, H670. All right, so our full-size ATX, USB 3.0 header, and another one over here. Type-C Charlie. This one does not have Wi-Fi, but it does have two USB 2.0s. This is probably the ideal type motherboard that would fit in that case, all right? So I hope that helps you at least looking at front panel connectors in the relationship to the motherboard, as well as the size. Let's talk about a couple other things that over the years I look for in a case that may drive you nuts. All right, so I guess I should back up a bit. Full tower, or mid tower, sorry. This is got a full ATX motherboard in it. And excuse me for not having the black cover of the CPU. You should always put those back on after you take a CPU out. But what I wanted to get at is CPU power connector. This has access here. You see this nice big opening? You will find that some cases do not have that, all right? Now, when does that really matter? Let's say you put something in here with this ginormous CPU cooler in there. Oh my God, folks. If you can't have a little space above this to get your fingers in here to make those connections, you are going to be hurting. Now, you can put the CPU cooler in after the fact. The better cases will have, after you take the side panel off, they'll have access from the back side. And so you could do it after the fact, but let's say you build it up outside of the case and then you go to put it in there. If that does not have some clearance above the motherboard, like this one does, it can be a real headache, all right? So if you're going to buy a mid-tower, at least make sure it's a decent mid-tower. There are some you'll find that the motherboard matches up with the top of the case. If we can get my fingers to show you this. So this motherboard right here would actually almost hit that, right? And that's going to be hard to work with. So now I said I wasn't going to talk about cooling. We'll just throw in a couple things that I do like. I always like to have these top vents on here. That's something I always look for in a computer. I prefer not to have this cheap acrylic stuff on here. I like the tempered glass. Preference to have venting in the front. Not have it at 90 degrees. Air flows a lot better when it's going pretty much in a straight line, right? Less likely to get turbulent. And folks, that's going to about do it for this video for what I want to talk about. The other aspects, you know, would be the graphics card. Obviously, you get something like this. This is not going to work in that computer, right? It's going to be way too big. Even this PC, that's way too big a graphics card. Something like that, yeah, it's fine. So a lot of stuff to think about ahead of time when you're building these. If you want something cute, you know, like, oh, I want a nice small little computer, realize you're going to, you know, have to potentially size down your other components, okay? And that could be in the motherboard, that could be the graphics card, that could be the CPU cooler. Now the CPU cooler here, it'll fit good in this case, but it might not fit in that case, and it definitely is not going to fit in this case, all right? The width of that, pretty much from the top here to the bottom of the motherboard, is about 7 inches. In this case, if I remember correctly, it's 7 inches, so it might hit the glass when you put that on. But there you go, folks. That's my tips. And I hope it helped y'all out. Thanks for checking out the video. Please like, please subscribe. Thank you.